Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our session. We're about to get moving forward in just a quick moment. I just want to start off by welcoming you to tonight's webinar, which is titled GenAI to Generate Aligned Formative Assessments. Tonight's webinar is brought to you by OECM and Dell Technologies, who partnered together for this. My name is Eric, and I work with Advanced Learning Partnerships, and we partner with Dell Technologies to provide professional learning both uh, internationally and also nationally as well. So happy to be here. As we're getting moving forward, I do want to do a few things to get started, and then we will jump right into the work. But I do want to thank you for joining me tonight for this session. As we begin tonight's session, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which I live and work, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee. This land is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Cherokee Nation, specifically the Cherokee people who were forcibly removed from this region during the Trail of Tears. We honor the resilience, strength, and enduring connection of Indigenous peoples to this land, past, present, and future. And at any time, if you feel comfortable and compelled, we invite you to please share where you're joining us from today so that we can all recognize and honor the diverse lands that bring us together in this space tonight. I want to give a brief introduction to myself. I won't be too long on this, but I do want to say hello and properly introduce myself. I'm Eric White. Again, I work with Advanced Learning Partnerships. I started off my journey as a teacher, working with grades 9 through 12 primarily. I had an affinity for the ninth grade students, and so I really enjoyed teaching that grade level, but all those grade levels were wonderful. I taught social studies, so all those different subjects. Over 7 years, I had a chance to stay in the classroom, work with students. But after those 7 years, I did move into an instructional coaching position, partnering with teachers of all grade levels to design and implement high quality lessons. And for the past few years, I've also been a consultant working in this type of role to provide professional learning. So great to be here. And I just mentioned there on the slide, December 2022 really marked a watershed moment in my life when I first discovered and started using ChatGPT. As a futuristic type person who's really interested in all things future oriented, it really blew my mind and also gave me pause and got me excited. And I was sharing with my friends, and some jumped right in with me. Some were a little hesitant, and there are a lot of feelings that go on with AI. And so I just know that for me, I just found it to be really compelling, and I'm continually trying to discover new use cases for the AI products that I'm seeing out in the market. So great to be here. I will say, as we're moving forward as well, I would love just to know a little bit about you. In particular, you just shared a number of you where you're joining us from. You might also in the chat want to respond to this prompt. When you think about AI, what's one area of your work or just your life in general you hope it can improve? Just really curious to know maybe your curiosity and your disposition toward AI as well. So I'm going to pause and just give you a chance to contribute in the chat if you'd like to. Thank you. I see some of those coming in right now. I encourage you to read the thoughts of others right here as well. I'm seeing a few really interesting ideas from UDL and differentiating instruction to efficiency and yes, 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 Tina, those assignments that they can't cheat on, which has really had me exploring more of those project-based approaches lately as well. Lots of good stuff here to share. Thank you. More stuff to read. Yes, yes. Feedback on work. Thank you. Very good. Well, thank you. Yes, as we all come together for AI, we all have different goals around us. And of course, we have some specific goals tonight as we start to dig into the work. So, with that, I am going to go ahead and move forward and just do a little bit of framing before we begin as well. Tina, yes, yes. Thank you for that question in the chat. I haven't mentioned it, but it makes good sense to share it right now. The slide deck that you see me going through tonight will be something that I am more than happy to share with you. Later on tonight, as we get into the application part of the webinar, I have a few different prompts that you might try out, and I'm going to share those slides in the chat a little bit later. But do know that after this session, there will be a follow-up email that will provide a link to this slide deck so that if you want to use it for later use, you certainly can. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Let's go ahead and frame things out just a bit. Be nice to kind of know where we're going and how we're going to do it. So if you'll stay with me here, I just want to open up the session with a few ideas. Number one, just kind of what to expect. What are we going to do tonight? How's it going to feel? A couple of things that I just want to mention. Number one, this is going to be really focused on open participation. We're going to encourage you to engage in an activity that will include interacting with the generative AI platform like ChatGPT. So we're not just going to talk about prompting and how to get formative assessments. We're going to try it out as well. Open dialogue. So this is really designed to be a session that you can share your curiosity and experiences with one another, especially through the chat. Some of you may even be compelled a little bit later to verbally share and unmute yourself. Either way is just fine. Also, this community is a place to share your ideas, resources, and I always like to say the smartest person in the room is the room or the Zoom as it is tonight. So as ideas flourish and you're willing to share, you can do that in the chat with one another as well. So as we move forward, though, a couple of objectives, outcomes that I hope we can achieve through our time together tonight. Number one, just to understand the basics of generative AI, including the education use cases and the associated risks and responsibilities. So we will spend just a little bit of time in the webinar level setting around what exactly generative AI is and how we can use it. Also, outcome number two, we want to explore and leverage prompt strategies to generate formative assessments that align to lesson objectives. So we are going to practice our prompting. If you've interacted with any of the generative AI platforms, you've probably picked up a few tips yourself on how to prompt. And I want to provide a few sample prompts to give you a chance to dig into this world of formative assessment. So be ready to apply some of our thoughts in just a little bit as well. So let me also just lay out the agenda. The agenda is going to include, again, introduction to generative AI. I also want to make sure I spend just a little bit of time talking about prompt engineering. How do we get the right output from the large language model platforms that we interact with? I want to talk about some principles and practices that we can all use in our interactions to ensure that we're getting the best out of these platforms. So we'll spend a little bit of time doing that. Also, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about the intersection of generative AI and formative assessments. And then I want to issue a prompt challenge to you. That's where I'm going to share a slide deck with you that has some example prompts that you'll be able to copy and paste into your own large language model that you're using. By the way, when we get to that point a little bit later, feel free to use any platform that works for you. I'm going to be using ChatGPT. Some of you might use Microsoft Copilot. Some of you might use Claude or another platform. But we are going to interact with a prompt challenge to get practicing on generating formative assessments that work for us and our students. And finally, as John Dewey said, we don't learn from experience, we learn from reflecting on experience. So we will have a closing reflection as well to capture our learning and to also think about some of those next steps as well. And just some quick norms and etiquette as well. We're just going to invite you, of course, to be present for the learning. This is a session where you can try things out. Remember, a little bit later, we are going to use some prompting in an effort to generate the right types of formative assessments that we're looking for. So feel free to try those things out. I always like to say you can shake it, you're not going to break it with AI, right? So we can take a lot of liberties as we do those prompts. Share ideas as well. I'm going to be curious to know as you try out those prompts a little bit later how they work for you, what adjustments you made. That's going to be a great time to maybe share some of those ideas in the chat as well. And also, there's times in which you might want to feel compelled to share verbally. Uh, but when you're not, I'm just going to ask for you to keep your microphone muted when not actively speaking, just to reduce any background noise in the room. And finally, just a quick disclaimer. The tools used in this webinar may or may not be approved for use by your local Board of Education, but are used to demonstrate broad principles and techniques transferable to many other approved platforms and applications. So we do advise that you do please check with your local board to determine if these tools are indeed approved for use. So with that being said, I do want to go ahead and move right into our agenda. We're going to move step by step together. And that first step, of course, is our introduction to generative AI. So if you're new to this experience, I got a few items to share with you to kind of level set our understanding around generative AI. And then sooner than later, we're going to get into trying it out as well. But first off, let's interact in the chat one more time. I would love for you to look at the slide, read 1 through 4, and I would love for you just to drop in the chat maybe your self-identified rating. Are you 1, 2, 3, or 4? And of course, it's acceptable to any one of those for tonight's session. So feel free to drop that in the next minute if you would. Oh, very good. Thank you so much. So we have kind of a decently wide range here. So we have some of you who are pretty comfortable, some of you very comfortable, some of you coming in a little new to it, but are eager to learn more. So that's wonderful as well. Very good. It's always just kind of nice to know where the room is. And again, for those of you who might be at 3 and 4, if there are ideas that you want to share in the chat during the webinar for others to learn from your expertise, again, this is a wonderful place to do it as well. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward with our introduction to generative AI. Before we dig right in to generative AI, let's just briefly talk about the different types of AI that you might see around you. First off, you may see around you reactive AI. Reactive AI responds to predetermined actions. You might think of the chess program IBM's Deep Blue that makes moves based on specific roles and rules. Um, Oftentimes, this is an AI that is not as nearly dynamic that we're getting into with generative AI, but a lot of us have been around reactive AI platforms. Now, moving forward, a lot of us also have engaged in predictive AI as well. When we have predictive AI, we're talking about AI that analyzes data and predicts outcomes, like recommendation systems. You see this on Netflix, music streaming services, and the like. We're all kind of used to those as well. But finally, we have generative AI, which stands out really because it doesn't just react or make predictions, it creates new content. And it does this based on patterns that it has learned. And it's that creative power of generative AI that we're going to be exploring in more detail tonight. Now that we've kind of seen where generative AI fits in the larger scope of AI, let's even more accurately and precisely kind of define what it is. Generative AI really refers to the systems capable of creating new content, and whether that's text, images, or even music, by learning patterns from existing data. I like to imagine it as a digital chef that can create something entirely new for me, inspired by what it has already known and seen. And it's this ability to generate new content is what makes generative AI really different from the other types of AI that we just discussed. Now, we won't go too far into the technical pieces of this. We're going to look under the hood just slightly here, but more importantly than understanding the technical components of generative AI, it's really what can we do with AI that we're primarily here for. I may not know every bit of the workings inside of my phone, but I'm constantly aware of its impact and what it can do for me. So we're going to really stay on the use case and application side. However, if you'll indulge me a little bit, we will talk just a bit about the back end of this, the under the hood features. So generative AI does work on these large data sets to recognize patterns. Generative AI relies on something called neural networks, and these neural networks try to mimic how our brain works. It's made up of layers of tiny units called nodes, which are like little decision makers. Each little node makes important decisions. It processes information and then it sends it to the next node as well. You might even think of these little nodes as little detectives, each detective looking at a small piece of the case or information, makes a decision, passes it along to the next detective. As the clues move through the team of detectives or nodes as they are, they piece together a bigger picture and eventually solve the case. And the more that they practice this, the better they get at making sort of accurate decisions around that information. So that's kind of just a little bit about what's going on in the background with generative AI. But like I mentioned, we're going to really kind of lean into what could it do for us? What are some of the use cases for generative AI? And especially, of course, in education. There are things that you're already probably trying, especially some of you who rated yourself 3 or 4. I'm imagining you've got some deep experience at trying out some of these education use cases. Everything from generating lesson plans to creative writing prompts that you want to give students, personalized feedback on assignments. We know that providing feedback on assignments can be a hefty weight as far as time goes and our allocation to it. And so a lot of people are exploring how we can make that just a little bit more efficient as well. And I know some of you were looking for those time efficiency hacks. And so seeing a lot of platforms emerge with this personalized feedback piece. Also, quizzes, games, interactive simulations, all these things can be used as we prompt with generative AI. Of course, tonight we're going to get into formative assessment very soon. So we're going to have a chance, of course, to try out some use cases of our own. Now, of course, with the use cases and the leveraging of generative AI come risk and responsibilities as well. Now, there's numerous that we could go over, but for the time that we do have in session together, and with our context being education, there are really two major ones that I want to highlight: two risks, two responsibilities. So with that, one thing that we know that can be a risk is that data privacy and security piece. Also, we know that there can be potential bias in our AI outputs as well. So with that, we want to ensure that with those risks, we take a few responsible actions. Of course, protecting student information, only giving AI what it truly needs, really making sure that we don't disclose things that might be confidential, giving away names, other things of that sort. We're used, of course, as teachers to maintaining confidentiality and privacy. So we just extend that to the AI platforms as well. And of course, just making sure that we also look for accuracy, look for bias, look for fairness, look for inclusivity in the outputs that we receive from AI as well. Now, before we move to the next stage, because I do want to introduce just a little bit around prompt engineering, talk about a few principles and practices. But before we do, you gave me your rating, you gave me some goals that you're after. Now, I'd love to know just how you're using things, possibly in your classroom or for your work if you're out of the classroom. So feel free to share your experience in the chat. And if you haven't tried anything, what types of AI generated content would you find most useful? So, again, feel free to share any ideas. What are you currently using AI for? Any education use cases, especially? Very good. Hopefully, you're checking out the chat with other people's thoughts as well. I'm just going to pause and let you read just a few more of these ideas. Seeing a lot of good stuff here from creating quizzes and rubrics. And of course, we're going to get into that very soon with formative assessment. Lesson creation, absolutely. Oh, nice, nice, Claire. I like that idea of having students use it to proofread their own work. Yeah, that thought partnership that you can have through AI can be really powerful. Very good. Thank you so much for sharing those ideas. Love it, love it, love it. I, of course, am here to talk about formative assessment, and we're going to give you some prompts to try out. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But before we do, let's actually talk about prompt engineering for just a quick moment. Yeah, I mentioned at the outset, I got pretty excited about generative AI in December of 2022, and I tinkered around for quite a bit and interacted with a lot of different AI platforms. But then I decided, I need to be, I'm an educator. I want to be educated as well. And so I took an online course on prompt engineering, and I just found it to be fascinating, just the different ways in which we can plug into AI, the way we can prompt it. to get what we're looking for. So I would certainly like to give you just a little bit of information around prompt engineering that might help you. I know a lot of you are at threes and fours, but love to share just a few ideas that you might consider as well. Oh, Tina, I just saw that in the chat. Feel free to come right back in whenever it works for you. Absolutely. All right, so let's talk just a moment about prompt engineering. When we're talking about prompt engineering, we are talking about almost like an art form, right? That combines clarity, curiosity, and creativity. It's a skill that grows over time, and it can really transform how you interact with these powerful tools. So I want to go over just a few more items with prompt engineering before we start using some prompting ourselves. But to harness the full potential of generative AI, I think it's really important to understand prompt engineering. And that really involves the crafting of specific inputs or prompts that guide the AI to generate the content you need. The quality of AI's output is directly related, right, to the quality of our input or prompt. A well-crafted prompt can really make the difference between a generic response and something that feels really valuable and tailored to you as well. Oh, yes, yes. Thanks for sharing that, Claire. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of this. I really do think that over time, prompt engineering will become a literacy standard that students will be expected to know and be able to do in practice. So, the future's looking bright for that. I do want to share just a couple of approaches that you might consider. There's so many out there. I'm going to share two that resonate with me and I find to be very helpful to use. Again, we may even use parts of these in our next session when we start trying things out. But one of them is called the RTF approach, the role task format approach. I'm a big fan of using this. It kind of helps me organize my thinking as I want to interact with generative AI. Sometimes if it's sort of a casual type of engagement with AI, I may not use this approach. But when I'm in my education realm and I'm trying to get things done and get things created, I love using this. So the R, of course, is role. Let's define the persona, the point of view that AI should be adopting. And by specifying that role, we now set the tone and the perspective for AI to engage with us. And then after AI knows its role, I want AI to know its task, right? So this clarifies what exactly we need. By detailing this, of course, we direct AI's focus and really define the scope and response it's going to give to us. And as it's working on that response, I like to provide a format, right? I want to make sure that the output that it provides me is in a way that in a format that I find useful. Now, the good thing about generative AI platforms is that they're pretty intuitive. So even if you don't provide a format, they're going to give you one and pretty organized. But every once in a while, we may have a specific template that we want AI to follow. So some of you, in just a little bit, might use the role task format approach. By the way, here is an example of a prompt that a teacher might use using the RTF approach. So let me pause and let you read that example prompt for just a quick moment before we move forward. All right. So again, that's the RTF approach to prompt engineering, but also I want to give you another one you might consider. This one we found from Samuel Mamando on LinkedIn. Um, this guide principle can really help make sure that what you're entering into your generative AI platform is giving you exactly what you need. So it's the GUIDE. So we want to state the goal. We want to define that clearly. We also want to provide context to help the AI understand where we're coming from and any background information. We want to instruct, tell it what to do, right? Give it details to ensure what it does is wrapped around the exact output that we're looking for. And finally, E, the evaluate piece, really telling AI what we're going to be looking for when that output comes our way. And so you can also use this sort of principled approach as you construct your AI inputs as well. For example, I actually want to show you one. This one's using that GUIDE guide approach. I even highlighted by color each part, right, from goal to understand to instruct to details to evaluate, just so you can kind of see within this prompt each one of those principles that it's leveraging. So again, I'm going to pause and let you read that prompt and just kind of take in how this principled approach, this framework is used for AI. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, I will be sending the full slide deck. You're going to get a portion of the slide deck in just a little bit. You're going to get the full slide deck as I send it out to everyone who registered, including, of course, yourselves who are here for the live session. So some of these slides that are a bit text heavy that you're going to want to see later, just know it's coming your way soon. So as we wrap up this piece, because I do want to move in to formative assessment and that intersection of AI with this and start using some prompts, but just some last things to remember. These prompting skills help us navigate the flood of AI tools that are in today's market. I tend to find that very comforting. One thing that feels overwhelming at times for me, because I think we're all kind of on that learning journey of AI. While we might be comfortable, our expertise is always growing, and every time I wake up, my inbox is full of these AI newsletters where these all these new developments and new tools, and at times I feel like I can't keep up with everything that's coming my way. But it provides me a lot of comfort and clarity to know, as long as I know how to prompt well, I think I'm going to be okay for at least quite a while. A lot of those tools require prompting or at least drop down features to do. So for me, that prompting piece really helps me um, kind of feel clarity around some of the chaos that may surround me with all these AI tools coming at me. Also, for stronger results, remember that any AI output is strongly as good as the input. We talked about that before. To provide those details when needed as well. And also, and I really like this fourth one. Don't stop at one prompt. Iterate your prompts. Refine each prompt until the AI delivers the outcome that you need. I've noticed that sometimes with even the most specificity, even using that strict guide framework, there's those misconceptions. There's those what we call hallucinations from the output where we may not get what we want. And so it's always good to redirect, to continue the conversation. So when we get into prompting in just a little bit, I'm going to really encourage you to also iterate as you prompt as well. Maureen, just saw you in your comment. Yeah, thank you so much. Absolutely. So as we move forward with this, I do want to spend just a quick moment talking about that intersection of generative AI and formative assessment. And then we're going to start to tinker around. You've heard my voice long enough. We want to give you some time to actually be active in this webinar as well. So in just a moment, I'm going to give you a challenge. There's going to be some options. You're going to take one, and we're going to give you some actual application time. But before we do, let's just talk about that intersection of generative AI and formative assessments. Let's talk about formative assessment in general, kind of the when, the why, and the how of it. It's such a strong strategy in education, right? I'm not sure if there's another more, researched area than formative assessment. We're going to talk about that in a moment as well. But when do we use formative assessment? Of course, we use it throughout the learning process to monitor student progress and to make those timely adjustments, right? We don't want to be shocked and surprised at the end of a unit of study. So formative assessment allows us to jump in and make those adjustments. There's an article from Edutopia, if you like that website. I love to read its blogs. And there was a blog recently, well, actually a few years ago, but rather recent, that talked about this difference between summative and formative. And it used this chef analogy. And going back to, I guess I like food because I use the chef analogy for AI as well. But they use it in Edutopia as well for formative and summative. And what they said was, they said, when when summative assessment is happening, it's like when the chef is serving the soup to their family or their friends or their customers or clients. Um, but formative assessment is like when the chef is in the back kitchen tasting the soup, adding a dash of this, a pinch of that, kind of staying close to it. And so one thing I'm always thinking of myself as a teacher, in the classroom, I'm thinking about um, how can I taste the soup, right? To ensure that that end meal is going to be palatable and delicious and worthy. And so I love that idea of just tasting the soup. And we do it continuously with formative assessment. What about the why, though? Right? The why is important as well. We're always thinking about our whys in many ways. But when we think about the why, this is really to identify the strengths and gaps to help students take ownership of their learning. And of course, how? Through a lot of low stakes assignments, checkpoints, interactive tasks that provide that ongoing feedback to guide instruction. So, with that, I want to throw just a few quick statistics that I found compelling around formative assessment. I think it's such a strong approach to education. We almost do it instinctively and invisibly. It's such a part of what we do when we interact with our students. But I just want to bring up a couple of numbers here. 72% of teachers report that formative assessment helps them better understand and respond to individual student needs. Um, Probably should be 100, but it's at 72, and that's pretty strong. Formative assessment practices are linked to a 50% increase in student engagement in the classrooms. That's from Hattie. And finally, students who receive frequent formative assessments demonstrate learning gains of 20 to 25%. So we know this is a strong piece of any teacher's toolkit. So with that, uh, let's go ahead and move forward into our next piece of the agenda. Um, before we do, just really quick, I want to go to the chat because I'm really curious from you. We talked about some of those hows. What are some of your favorite go-to formative assessments to gauge student learning? How do you know that students know what they need to know in your classroom? So if you would, just drop it in the chat. What are your go-tos? What do you do to taste the soup, so to speak, in your own classroom? Tina, thank you. Exit cards, exit tickets. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, the quick thumbs up, thumbs down, just for clarification and comprehension along the way. Absolutely. Some of us may even do that fist to five as well. We kind of did a form of assessment a little bit earlier with our 1 through 4, and a little bit of a self-assessment for me to formally know where we are as well. There you go. Practice quizzes, conversations, observations, right? We're always looking around, kind of noticing what's going right, where those gaps are. Very good. As always, thanks for sharing in the chat. Just makes things a little bit more interactive. Love to know kind of where your minds are as we go through this work. I will say, and again, I mentioned those tools before. There's so many out there. Now, I am not a vendor or an advocate for any specific tool. I will say that these are a few that I've tried out with regard to formative assessment. And again, this session isn't really geared toward demoing any one of these tools. I'm not a Magic School vendor or anything, but I do just want to share a few tools that are out there, especially with regard to formative assessment. Some of these platforms that you see here are really good at generating those exit tickets that you're talking about. Quiz creators, rubric generators as well. But again, and I'm just gonna just be honest for a moment. I love these tools, and when I interact with them, I'm always constantly surprised by each one. But I still just love the prompting. Give me ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini, and just let me crack my knuckles and start typing, and I'm a happy camper. I feel like there's nothing that these platforms have offered that I can't do through prompting. Some of those things may come that way, with image creation and other things, but as far as formative assessment goes, I've really found a comfort spot in prompting. And so um, I want to save you maybe from creating 6 or 7 different logins for all these platforms. Uh, but feel free to explore if you like, though, right? You're finding out what's working for you. We're all kind of in that kind of mode of trying things out. But I did just want to share a couple of tools that are out there from Brisk to help me teach, Magic School AI, Ghibli, and Teach Genius AI. Again, there's lots out there, but those are the ones through my usage thus far that have helped me with that formative assessment piece. Now, I've been mentioning it. It's time to actually get into it. It's the prompt challenge. I want to make sure that you have a chance to actually try a few things out while you're here tonight. Um, with that being said, I would love to do a little bit of a setup, and then I want to share the actual resource in the chat, and I'm going to give you some time to actually work with your choice of a large language model. Again, it could be ChatGPT, it could be Gemini, Copilot, the list goes on, Claude, whatever you like. But let me just go ahead and just kind of set the table, if you will, and then give you some time to tinker. And after that, I'm going to be really curious to know what prompts you use, what adjustments did you make? Did the output match what you were hoping it would do? What were your iterations like? And again, we'll have time to have that shared learning piece. So with that, I'm going to give you 4 different prompts to choose from. And remember, I'm going to drop this in the chat in just a moment. You can copy and paste. I want to make this really simple and easy for you tonight with the webinar. Um, but do know, of course, take lots of liberties. I'm giving you sort of a starting place, a template with some fill in the blanks. But do know, change it as it makes sense for you and your own context. So if you're in the classroom, these may make more sense for that. If you're not, you may want to adjust these a little bit, and that's certainly okay. What I want to do is just go through these quickly, kind of show you what the prompts look like, and then I'm going to hand it over to you and allow you to at least pick one. If you work faster, you may do more than one, but let's go ahead and dive in. The first one I want to mention is the flipped interaction prompt. The flipped interaction prompt. I really like this prompt approach. This is one that I learned in my prompt engineering course. Sometimes when we're prompting, we're pushing forward a lot of information to the AI to consider, but sometimes I want AI to ask me questions, to kind of pull things out of me, and do that in a way that keeps the curiosity on their side. So if you like that approach and you want to try something different, like a flipped interaction, you might consider prompt challenge number 1. So I'll just quickly read this and just again consider this is one of 4. Is this the one you might use? So design an engaging formative assessment that offers multiple ways for my insert grade level students to demonstrate their understanding of insert topic. My students have diverse needs and preferences, and I aim to assess their understanding while offering options that cater to their strengths and interests. Ask me a series of targeted, specific questions, one at a time, to gather the necessary information to create the assessment. Focus on including various methods that are creative, student-centered, and practical for classroom implementation. I will review your output to ensure it aligns to my student learning goals, accommodates different diverse needs, and is feasible within my teaching context. So that's one prompt that you might use. That also follows very strictly that guide framework. So you may even see the GUIDE kind of layered in there with this prompt. So if you want ChatGPT or any other platform to ask you questions and then generate a formative assessment, and this one, of course, is really more around differentiation for different student needs. So if you want to kind of see the gel of differentiated instruction and formative assessment, this could be one that you want to try. The next one is a little bit more straightforward. It's using that RTF approach. This one is just for a good old-fashioned set of quiz questions, right? So if you want something very quick to kind of spin out for you, you can see here the role, task, and format. So you're a formative assessment specialist. I'm applying that persona who designs quizzes for insert grade level. And then you see the task here to create a number of questions, multiple choice quiz. And you can even see in the format, I'm going to ask it to give it A, B, C, D options, but I'm going to ask it also to follow up with the correct answer and a one sentence explanation. So I want the quiz and an answer key to go along with it as well. So if you want to try that one, that's prompt number 2. Prompt number 3, this kind of puts AI in the position of a creative thought partner. So here's another one. I'm an insert subject or course teacher seeking a creative thought partner to help me brainstorm fresh and highly creative formative assessment ideas for my insert grade level students. I'm tired of using the same traditional methods, quizzes, worksheets, essay tickets, etc. While those are good, right? Tried and true. I want ideas that are quick, creative, easy to implement, and engaging for my students. Provide 3 unique formative assessment ideas that go beyond typical approaches. Each idea should be fun and interactive, encouraging student participation, align with my goal of assessing student understanding, and be practical to implement in a single class period or as a quick activity. And for each idea, include a short description of how it works, what materials, if needed, are needed, and why it would engage students. I'll evaluate the ideas based on their creativity, practicality, and how well they engage students while assessing their learning. So this is one, if you just want to push the boundaries of what AI can creatively think, this might be the prompt that you actually use. And finally, there's the 4th one. Now, this one is going to be probably most applicable if you easily and accessibly have a lesson that you could upload to the large language model or copy and paste over to it. Because you can see in this one, I'm going to say, I'm a subject matter or course teacher seeking to improve formative assessment opportunities in my grade level lesson topic. My goal is to ensure students actively demonstrate their understanding throughout the lesson with multiple checkpoints for meaningful insights into their process. Please provide an analysis of my lesson by identifying current strengths in my formative assessment methods and explaining why they are effective, highlight specific gaps and missed opportunities. So, what I'm going to ask this one to do, of course, is to give me 2 to 3 actionable suggestions. And I'm also going to ask it to recommend 1 or 2 reflection questions that I can encourage students to use just to be metacognitive and employ a little bit of self-assessment as well. So this is one again that you could copy and paste, drop a link or a document into your LLM, your large language model, and just have it do an analysis of something that you're already doing. So those are your 4 choices. What I'm going to do in the chat, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to drop a slide deck in there for you that has all those four prompts that we just covered. You can copy and paste those, make them all your own, right? It's a template, so there's things that you're going to plug in already. But again, I'm going to encourage you to take liberties to make these all your own. What I would love to do is give you just about 6, 7 minutes, 6, 7 minutes to tinker around with one of those prompts. If you like that prompt, keep going with it and iterating. If you want to move to another one, you certainly can. But around 57, 58 past the hour, we're going to do a final reflection and just see what happened. So during this time, I'm going to mute myself so that you can tinker around in silence. But go ahead and please begin one of those four prompt challenges using an AI platform of your choice. I have about 3 more minutes to try out and tinker with those prompts, and then we're going to come back together to start wrapping things up. All right, everyone. I am going to invite you back together because it is about time to wrap up. But I am super curious. So if you don't mind, you can use the chat. If you feel compelled, you can unmute yourself. But I'm just curious to know, like, what, and you don't have to answer all four of these, but maybe there's a couple that you would. What prompt challenge did you try? I'm curious to know that. How well did the output match your expectations with the sample that you had? Did you provide follow-up prompts? And what did you learn from this experience? Whether you're very versed at prompting and comfortable, or you're more new to this, just curious to know kind of any learning that happened through that experience as well. So feel free to drop any ideas in the chat here. Give about a minute, minute and a half to share any thoughts about your prompting experience using those four options. Oh, a biology speed dating idea that was suggested in prompt number two. Interesting. Oh, yes, Karen. Thanks for sharing that on prompt one as well. Yeah, I really enjoy just being almost interviewed, right? Sometimes it asks questions that I didn't even think about. Sometimes I'm thinking about all the information I need to flood to it, but sometimes I can kind of, take a back seat and let it kind of drive a little bit with the questions. Very good. Thanks for sharing, Carrie, as well. So it is about wrap up time. So I see a few more coming in. I'm going to pause for about half a minute just to read a few more. And then I would like to wrap up the session and let you get back to your evening. Oh, very good, Claire. Karen, yes. Thank you. Thank you. And thank all of you tonight for coming. I want to make sure as we wrap up, uh, just to thank you for your contributions. I was constantly looking over at the chat to see all the dialogue that was going on, so it's wonderful to see that interactivity. Thanks again for coming. Right, you didn't have to be here after a long night, a long day, but you were, and I certainly appreciate that. Moving forward. So number one. You're going to get an email from me very, very soon. And in that email, you're going to get the slide deck that was used tonight. And in the slide deck, you're going to see sometimes on the slides different notes and ideas that support the slide as well. So you'll have some information there. But I do hope that you'll come back to a next session. We're going to follow up on assessment on January the 27th with a session on differentiated summative assessments and how that can come to life with AI in your classroom. So, hope to see you back for another session. But thanks for your time tonight. Thanks for your contributions, and wish you well moving forward. And please do come back again and look out for that email coming from me very soon. It'll be in a couple of days. You're going to see that in your inbox. But thanks again, and have a wonderful night, everyone.